All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Megan's Monday Market Update. I've got Matt Stancato here with Guild Mortgage Lending, and we've got some good news today. We're going to be talking about how interest rates are floating below 7%. And I'm going to hand it over to Matt to kind of talk about that some more.
Cool.
Matt.
Hi, happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. And
Yeah.
happy St. Patrick's Day, Megan. Yes, so we have seen largely, of course, when you say interest rates. So one of the big pet peeves for mortgage people is when you call in and say, what are your interest rates? Well, I can just five. What does it matter? See, there's a lot of different interest rates depending on how much you want to invest in the transaction, what your credit looks like, what kind of program you're getting. But by and large, there is one number we can look at when we look at interest rates, and it tells us what the average rate is. There's some assumptions built in there. I think it's the average rate paying half a point with an APR of blah, blah, blah. But for the first time in a long time, the average of rates across the country for a 30-year fixed purchase dropped below 7% and back into the high sixes.
Which is exciting, which is really
Very
good
exciting.
news for everyone who's been biting their nails and excited, waiting for this to happen. Seeing that, I'm curious how it's going to affect coming into the spring and summer market. We're officially in it. We are seeing listings coming on year over year, more listings coming on. Still
Mhm.
not pre-pandemic level listings, but we are seeing
Unfortunately
more
not.
listings. So I'm curious, with the still bit of a limited inventory of listings on the market, interest rates dropping slightly. What do we think of this? How do you think it's going to affect the spring market? Do you think we're going to have people overpaying for homes, or do you think it's going to hold steady?
I That's a series of really interesting questions. And the best I can do is just guess as to what I think is going to happen. And what I think is going to happen is that if we have a continued slide of the rates down towards 6%, that's going to be the trigger that the market has been waiting for these these properties that are being held, waiting for a better time in the rate market to occur. That's when they're going to go back on the market. If we were to break six the way we just broke seven, I would think that the market would be flying around in high gear. Yeah. The good news, there's so much demand that even an increase of properties on the market isn't going to radically decrease valuation. I see valuation holding steady, if not the appreciation slowing. I mean, we've had a really generous appreciation year, and I don't think that can continue. But when those rates get down to that point, we ought to see the market jump at the chance. And it's not because 6% is anything special in and of itself. It's because everything is relative. When rates were at 3% for 5 years in a row, 5% felt like a dagger in the heart. And now, when rates have been at 7.5% for a couple of years, a significant move like that back down to that magical 6% number is going to make a lot of things happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. And really it comes down to just the affordability for the person who's trying to get the loan.
Sure.
People who've been maybe pushed out of a certain price point or a market that they wanted to be in because interest rates were too high for them are now getting excited that they can step into the market and make a purchase. So I can see some eagerness from buyers. I do think, I always come back to, if you can afford it at a 7% interest rate, or, a 6.6, it's still a really good time to buy and refinance later, because interest
Mhm.
rates are kind of set up to continue to come down over the next few years. So I don't think it's a bad time to buy. I do think, though, like you said, if we get closer to six, if we even break the six threshold, oh
Mhm.
my gosh, I think we're gonna have so many people swarming for some
Oh,
listings.
my kingdom for 5.75. That would be a beautiful number. I remember several years ago when the market first started coming back after 2008. I think this is 2011, or I suppose. And we started looking for rates, and for one day, the rates got to 5.5%. And I think we booked 25 or 30 loans that day. People were just waiting for things to come in, and they were throwing contracts at us. So there is a certain threshold psychologically where people start to say, okay, this is now positive for me again.
And the refinance is going to be great for anybody who has kind
Sure.
of, made that purchase last year or so at those higher interest rates. They're definitely going to be excited. Um, I would say also, arguably, right now, if you get in at those higher interest rates when prices are, let's say hypothetically, you're buying a $500,000 house,
Mhm.
come the spring market, if interest rates were, I'm not saying they are, but let's say they drop down to the six or even below, unlikely, but possible, maybe you're paying 510, 515, 520, right?
Right.
So you're still, there is still a good time to buy and refinance is ultimately what I'm saying. But um, yeah,
Yeah, we're excited. All of our internal numbers are looking cautiously positive.
mhm.
Trying not to get ahead of ourselves, but it's looking like a market that's going to pick up very, very quickly. But you heard some interesting rumors about something on the real
I
estate side.
did. So some things that have been floating around on the internet is that Warren Buffett was considering an acquisition or selling Berkshire Hathaway to Compass
Hmm.
Realty. Which, to be clear, these are rumors because
Mhm.
Gino, the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, has said that they have no interest. There's no such thing as pretty much denying all claims.
Do we
What
know what's
has
going to happen?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Say, no, of course not.
Right.
However, part of what has spiked this conversation is everyone knows Warren Buffett has been selling off stocks in various
Mm,
different things. First, it was banks and Capital One, for example, or Citibank, etc. And he has also been selling his own stock in Berkshire and Hathaway
hmm.
as somebody who is the CEO.
Interesting. Yeah.
This is kind of a big deal, right? Why
Not
would
really
he be
confidence
doing
inspiring for your employees
not
either. I would
really.
imagine.
So it kind of does support these rumors or these thoughts that he would
It would
entertain
seem to.
selling the company as a whole to
Hmm.
Compass, which is one of the largest, one of the top four largest real estate brokerages in the nation. So I'm not sure what
That's
to take
exciting.
from that other
Yeah.
than what we can maybe infer here is his level of confidence
Okay.
in the brokerage or maybe the real estate market.
Okay.
So we've got some conflicting information here. On one hand, we're saying interest rates are floating below 7. We've
Hmm.
got more listings coming on. There's
Right.
definitely some positive things happening. And then on the other side, for those who kind of track and follow Warren Buffett and the decisions he's making, and maybe the predictions that are implied by the choices he's made, is
Hmm.
that maybe we're going into more of a recessive period. Um, so I will leave it up to the viewer to decide what they think about that. The other argument could simply be just that he has invested all of these years since like 1965,
Hmm.
I believe, building Berkshire and Hathaway. Maybe he feels like the company has peaked in its value to him and he's willing to sell. So,
Yeah, it could be divesting of a division that was more legally demanding
mhm,
than what he anticipated, especially after the sales contract changes.
mhm,
So I don't know. Maybe that could all have something to do with it. But he is a when he makes market noise, people absolutely listen. So at the very least, what it tells you is that somebody's listening to offers.
mhm.
There's at least that. Otherwise, the rumor itself, I don't think would exist at all.
No.
So that's very interesting stuff.
Or people could be also trying to identify his movements in the market to support their claims or their theories about what's actually happening.
I could be
For
working
me
backwards. Sure.
personally,
Okay. Yeah.
right? So, I mean, you can say, okay, maybe he's trying to cash in because he doesn't have as much faith in the brokerage, or maybe it's been just a very slow few years,
Mhm.
with listings and things in production. But on the other side of it, I would think that in order for him to really sell Berkshire and Hathaway after putting in all those years and all that time, there'd have to
Mhm.
be a significant profit. He'd have to be at the top of its value, and I would think that he would wanna pool the money for something else, like, he'd have something in his sights before
Yeah,
he would just pull the trigger. Do you know what I
that's my
mean?
only thought is that although the first thing you think when you see something like this is yes, it speaks to Berkshire Hathaway brokerage's financial health and stability. I know they have their own stock versus
Mhm,
the company itself. The other thing you might think is you never know what else he wants to do with that money. Maybe it's making him an 11% return, but he has a 12% return that he can be leveraging somewhere else. When you
mhm,
can move the market the way that he can, there's 3 and 4 moves deep that we're probably not even aware of. I
mhm.
I, I know that dismissively, John Rockefeller used to say to people, "I have ways of making money you know nothing of." And
Absolutely.
yeah, so I kind of
Absolutely.
think he must be the same, right? Yeah.
So, we all have our different opinions of how that might be planning out, or
Who
why it
knows?
could be happening. But for me to see something like Berkshire and Hathaway get acquired by Compass would be such a massive move in
Yeah.
the real estate world, because Berkshire and Hathaway have many um, divisions within it, with home services, for example, of America, different
Mm.
franchises. It's a very I don't want to say complicated, but it's there's a network there that would get impacted greatly by that acquisition. So
Gotcha.
until I hear anything else or see
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
suspicious, I'm gonna debunk that one and say it's probably not happening.
Best proof is that the guy's denying it.
Yes.
That's the only
Well,
that's the best proof we have. That's how conspiracies work. They can never be wrong. They just expand to include additional participants.
uh, absolutely. But looping it back to just the market, how are you seeing things on your end? Are you seeing more applications coming across your desk, or do you think things are holding steady? Or
Definitely more applications, but that's common for spring. Comparing this spring to last spring, we seem to be up about 15%. So
that's great.
fantastic. We love it.
The desire and the demand is there, so
Absolutely.
absolutely an opportunity for people to are waiting maybe to list their house to really consider, because there are absolutely the buyers out there looking. So
You're at a certain point, this demand and the supply will even out. If you're looking to put your house on the market, you are still in control.
yeah, it's still a
Yeah,
seller's market.
sure, for sure, right now.
It's getting a little leaner and easier for the buyer in the sense that maybe some home inspections here and there. Now, I'm curious to see if that will hold through the spring, though. I have been saying that the
Hmm.
last few months, home inspections, a seller assist, etc. Um, Given the area that we live in or we predominantly work in, I don't know that that will maintain itself in every
Okay,
transaction going into the spring, or as much as it has up until now, just because the demand is very strong still and there
gotcha.
aren't enough listings to really support the buyers.
Hmm.
But we'll be back in a few weeks and then we'll see if I'm right or not. So
Yeah, we definitely will. All right. So until next Monday,
until next Monday, thanks everyone for tuning in. Matt, appreciate you and your time.
of course. Well, happy to do it. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right.